What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode number 345. It's a lot of episodes. I don't even know why we keep numbering them. Eventually, just gonna be in like the thousands, and at that point, it's kind of just irrelevant. It's just like a number, right? Anyway, today
it's a way to keep track, right?
I suppose.
Yeah.
Usually we do the title, right? So the title's really way.
Yeah.
It's like if I did one of my videos, like Jiu-Jitsu video number.
You should do that.
We shouldn't do that. There's I've got like 1,000 videos or something. Anyway, guys, today's podcast, it's January. It's the beginning of January 2024 at the time of recording this. Maybe different depending on when you're listening to it. And every January, I do a little challenge with the people in my Chew crew. We call it the Executors Challenge, and I get a small cohort of grapplers together, and we focus on some things with our jiu-jitsu, and we get dialed in, and we get started in January. And again, the idea, we'll talk more about it in a second, kind of what I mean by all this, but it's I guess you would consider like the new year, new me kind of stuff. It is a cliche as it really it sounds. It really kind of makes sense to some degree, because you think about, like, if you were going to try to become the new you in like say September you start, well, then you've got like a gauntlet of candy and feasting and holiday stress.
Yeah.
It's really tough to really do a lot of stuff. I have some friends that are in the space of developing diets and everything else for people, and usually when it's like holiday time, it's just maintained. It's like maintenance. Yep. It's like, we're not going to try to, maybe you want to bulk, but we're not going to try to cut weight during this time frame. And then in January, all right, like that stuff is behind us. There's no like big holidays coming up really. And then it's naturally, you're going from the shortest days of the year. Now you're progressively moving to the longer days of the year. So it's a natural sort of seasonal shift anyway.
Yeah.
To make it makes sense, right? It makes sense to like say, okay, January, like we're going to start moving towards the spring and summer months, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to start moving to longer days. The holidays are behind us. Let's become something new. Which is why I never understand, when we were talking about this morning, like on New Year's Eve, like I'll have a drink or two. Mm-hmm. We'll sit around, me and Jess will usually have a dinner. Sometimes we'll invite people over, whatever, but we'll have a dinner, maybe play board games or something, and then like sit by the fire pit, and have a glass of, bourbon or something, and then enjoy it, and then go to sleep. Whereas like, people are like, the new me, new year, new me. I'm like, well, then why are you getting obliterated? Like you're ending the year with one of the worst possible things you could do. Yeah. And tomorrow you're going to start new. Like, why don't you start now?
Yeah.
But anyway, all that aside, we're going to talk about some ideas that come from the little Executors Challenge that I do that could be useful to you, give you some specific tactical stuff, but also just some really simple ideas to make things easier. Because, and the more I talk to people, and let me kind of go back a little bit, where the Executors Challenge started from originally was like, I took these surveys from people, which is asking them questions. I got thousands of these. I spent a whole day one day kind of just combing through them. And, the biggest thing that I hear from people is like, they're overwhelmed with information. They feel like they can't take any more in. They're distracted. They feel like they don't have focus. Just these repetitive themes over and over again. And so I was like, well, let's talk about those, because I don't feel those types of things.
Yeah.
And last year when we did it, man, like the same culprits are there. We'll talk about what those are, and like it's really simple things that you can do to clear things up for yourself. It's really not that difficult. And so we'll talk about those ideas, and hopefully this is useful to you guys going into New Year's, so that you can be a better grappler, better person. You can take these ideas, and obviously they can be useful to jiu-jitsu, because that's where I'm going to come from, because that's my field of expertise. But it's also something you can take over to everything else, from your work, because it's stuff I use for business, to your relationships. And like, if you just want to be a more present parent or partner or whatever, it's the same stuff. None of it really changes. It's just really eliminating the distractions, and then get dialed into what you want, and then putting up barriers around it to ensure that that's what happens. So we'll talk about how to do that in a second. Big thanks to our sponsor, Grapple Science. Guys, if you haven't checked them out, it's a newer company. It is a company made by some older grapplers. They used to be involved with the company Killcliff, and they were black belts, and they were looking in the jiu-jitsu space, and like, there's really nothing else other than like stimulant based stuff, right? Which is not something I like. I don't know about you guys. I don't want to like take a bunch of caffeine and stimulants and then go try to roll. If you've ever tried it, you might find that you feel like your heart's like buzzing through your chest. If you're young, you might get away with it, but as you get older, like woofing down a bunch of caffeine and stimulants is not the ideal way to go and do like a cardio intense exercise session. But again, they came up with this supplement called Cognition. I like the supplement. There's some different things in it, such as the silicate bonded, I think is what he said, arginine in it, which is supposed to cross the blood-brain barrier better. And again, the whole idea is basically to give you a supplement that can help increase your ability to be focused, increase your ability to be energetic and be present when you're in jiu-jitsu without cranking you full of stimulants. And so they did that with Cognition. I like the supplement. I've used it plenty of times, used it for a month before I even talked about it here. And then I use it off and on, depending on the day, depending on the type of training I do. It's not stimulant based, so you can still have your coffee or your caffeine, your tea, whatever you do, and you can still have it. And then if you don't like stimulants, then there's no stimulants in it, so it's fine. So if you guys want to check it out, it's a way to stay energized. It's a way to stay focused for jiu-jitsu training. It could be really helpful, especially if you have that long day of work and then you need like a little bit of it, like to zero in on something. It could be a useful supplement to help you out. Check it out at grapplescience.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order on their website. Give it a try. If you guys like it, or if you have a good experience with it, let me know. Also, thanks to Charlotte's Web for supporting the podcast. So again, I've talked about it over and over again. Like one of the best things that you can do to improve your jiu-jitsu, improve everything, is to support your recovery. And you can do that through a number of different ways, right? There's lots of different ways to support your recovery. The last of the list is, supplements. So it's always like, you start with diet and sleep, these types of things, stress management. And then you do all these different things and get them in check. And then you move to supplements. That's when supplements comes in, right? It's a supplement. It's not a replacement. But assuming that you're getting good sleep in, you're eating good food, doing all those things, supplements can be really useful. One of the supplements that I like to use to both support sleep and help with overall stress management is CBD. All right. It's a supplement I've been using for a number of years now. Currently, I'm using their CBN supplement, which is the Stay Asleep Gummy, which is, as it sounds, is to help support sleep. And again, anything that I can do to help support my sleep as I get older is really important, because the better my sleep is, the sharper my training is, the better my teaching is, the better my work is, the better my lifting is, the less grumpy I am with my kid or with my wife. I mean, all those things go up when you got good sleep. Everybody who's had a crappy night of sleep, what it's like, right? You wake up, for some reason you didn't sleep good the night before, you're short with your wife or your husband, you're short with your kid, you go to the gym, you're just like not there, you're trying to roll, and you just feel like you're stuck in like second gear, can't move out. It's like, we've all been there. So anything that I can do to help avoid those days as many times as possible, that's what I'm looking for, right? And so again, I use their Stay Asleep Gummy, which is a CBN supplement. If you guys want to try it, check out the promo code Chewjitsu30 at checkout. We'll save you 30% off the order at charlottesweb.com. Also, guys, if you want to get some new jiu-jitsu gear that is super nice, comfortable, looks good quality, check out epicrollbjj.com. They've got everything from shirts, t-shirts, rash guards, shorts, hoodies, the whole thing, gis, whatever you're looking for, they've got it. I will be doing a order with my new Chewjitsu rash guards and shorts coming out soon that will be made from Epic Roll. Those will be out sometime in January-ish. We'll be doing the pre-sale in January. So again, kind of keep your eyes peeled for that. But if you guys want to check out their website now, go to their website at epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. If you guys want to support the podcast directly and get access to our Patreon, then you can check out our website with all the perks at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. A lot of different things in there. Again, we put multiple different types of content in there. Some of it is, recordings of seminars that I've done. Some of it is warm-up routines specifically for jiu-jitsu practitioners like Eugene's put together. Then we also have guest spots where we've taken a clip from the guest, and that's in there. Again, all there laid out for you if you want to check it out. And you also get preferential treatment if you have questions from us that you want to send in. You can check out the different tiers that we have listed, but you can go to you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast to get access to it and get details. Also, guys, if you want to get more information on my daily email or any of the stuff that I send out directly, you can do so by going to my website at jujitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get access to my daily email that goes into everything from jiu-jitsu training to books I'm reading to lifting, diet tips, whatever it is that I want to share with you that I think might be useful to you. Along with that, you'll also get access to my Focus Jiu-Jitsu ebook and video. So the Focus Jiu-Jitsu ebook gives you 12 different strategies to support your open rolling to get more focus from it. Again, if you can derive more focus from your training, you will get better faster. I can't guarantee you anything, but I can almost guarantee that, right? Focused training will give you far more benefits than just simply training with no idea as to what you're doing. And then there's also a video of me breaking it down. So if you're not much of a reader, you can listen to me break down the ebook to you face to face in the video, and you can check that out. Again, it's free to you when you go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. And so with that said, guys, let's jump into this podcast. All right, guys, so let's talk about this idea. So I call this the Executor's Challenge. It's maybe a weird name, but I came up years ago with like this difference of people that I sort of observed, which is there's executors and there's collectors. Collectors, as the name implies, collect. They just kind of collect things. They hoard things. You know, they get more ideas, they get more gadgets, they get more gear, they get more instructionals, they, you know, more, but they don't really do anything with it. You know, I mean, there's so many people that like get stuff and then they do nothing with it, right? They get the book, but they don't read it. They get the instructional, but they don't study it. They get the new tennis shoes, but they don't run. You know, like they get the diet program, but they don't follow it. I mean, you can just insert whatever you want to. And then there's executors. And the executors are sort of the opposite, where you give them any little thing, they just do something with it, right? You give them any little shred of something useful and they're going to put it to use. You know, they're not so focused on the overall, like, everything. They're just like, give me something and I'm going to work with this. You know, you give them one technique from the instructional and they'll make it work. You give them one idea and they'll make it work. The definition of executor, by the way, that I got, that I think is sort of fits my purpose, is a person who produces something or puts something into effect. Boom, that's it, right? So like if you go to a seminar, an executor will simply find one move out of that seminar and they add it to their game. They drill it, they study it, they practice it, and they put it into their game. The collector will, you know, take notes, they'll record video, they'll do the whole thing. They do nothing. Nothing ever ends up in their game live, right? That's the difference. You know, an example of this recently was I had a young kid sent me just a message just the other day. He had sent me a message back in the summer and said, Chewy, I'm like having trouble gaining weight. He's like, do you have any ideas on how to gain weight? He's like, I'm lifting weights, I'm doing jiu-jitsu, but I'm stuck at like, you know, like 180 to 185. And so, you know, I asked him some questions. I was kind of asking him, like, what do you eat on a day? You know, because gaining weight, gaining or losing weight is not like a mystery. A lot of times it's made to be a mystery. Like it's sold a lot of times as a complex thing because people make a lot of money off of basically making things into complex ideas when it's really pretty simple. You either eat more food or you eat less food. That's it. Now, again, quality of food makes a big difference. The type of food, like, you know, like Whole Foods versus, you know, whatever, that makes a difference. But you can lose food eating McDonald's. You lose weight eating McDonald's. You know, it's just, you're not going to be able to eat very much of it, you know, because it's calorically dense. But anyway, send him a message. I'm like, here, man, here's what, like, I gave him like an idea of what some of my meals look like. I was like, here's what some of my meals look like. And I sent this email out to the Chew Crew email list. Here's what my meals look like. You got to start eating like your life depends on it. Cause he was not eating enough. I was like, you got to eat more food, bro. And like, you can't be like, oh, I'm kind of full, I'm not hungry. Who gives a shit? Eat more food. Like, again, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're not hungry. What matters is like, did you get your calories in today? Because what's more important? Do you want to be bigger or do you want to be like, I'm not hungry? Make a choice. It's like, you can't have both. You either gotta sort of get yourself, because again, you got to think about it. If you're going to become a new person, this bigger person, you got to eat like a big boy. You know, you can't be eating like a little guy. You got to be eating like a big guy. Yeah. And so that's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit. You get used to it though. You know, like it takes a little bit, you know, whatever, but like give it a week or two and all of a sudden your body will acclimate to that food volume. And then it will be like, hey, I can put more down the hatch. And so you just keep incrementally do it. Well, he sends me a message the other day. He's up 20 pounds. That's crazy. You know, I mean, now granted, you know, you're talking 20 pounds over the course of like 7 months. It's not all muscle, you know, because like obviously like you could be on all the Mexican supplements you want. And when you're on a bulk, you're still going to gain some fat. Right. There's no way around it, right? Because you're going in a caloric surplus. But, you know, he gained some weight, gained some solid weight, feeling pretty good. He said he's feeling good in the gym. He's got more energy for his lifting and for his jiu-jitsu because he's eating more food. He's like, man, that's great. Now there's a guy who executed. I gave him one idea, and I didn't give him a full diet. Like, I didn't write out everything. I didn't tell him exactly I didn't coach him. I said, look, man, just here's a couple of ideas of how I eat. And then some ideas that I've learned from like guys like Eli.
Yep.
Go put this into action and see what happens. And he was like, all right, I'm going to go eat. Boom. Did it. Yeah. That's what he did. You know, and I think that's the idea. Like you think about like, it's small things, right? And I think that, and this is what we'll kind of talk about more and more today, is that a lot of people try to overcomplicate all this stuff. And I think a lot of times, like, you know, there's a lot of money to be made in like selling people complexity, because it seems like that's what you should be doing when a lot of this stuff is super, super simple.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of times there's a lot of over complexity gets sold, but I don't think it's necessarily more beneficial for people. But that's what I mean by executors versus collectors, right? Collectors collect, they do nothing. Executors, they might collect the same amount of information, they maybe collect less, but whatever it is, they put something into action, they get focused on it.
Yeah. And change is usually uncomfortable. It's never, I remember getting with Eli, and the first couple of weeks exactly, I was like, I don't know if I can eat all this food. And I was like forcing myself to eat it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks after, I was like, oh, my body's hungry. I'm hungry.
Yeah, you're starting to get adapted to it.
Yeah. So it's initially uncomfortable, and your body just adjusts. I mean, it just gets used to it. And then you're like, okay, I can do this thing. And as far as the food stuff goes, we're getting a little, you know, into the weeds and some stuff. You just have to prepare it. You just have to meal prep it. That's really the way it is. Like, you can't just, it's going to be so tedious to try to do it on the fly. Like, you have to literally spend time to get it ready for your week or for your meals.
Well, you're not going to be able to do it on the fly. You know what I mean? Like,
you can't. 100%.
I mean, there's some like little tricks, like, you know, like in a pinch, if I needed to, like I can get some rice and I can get like a can of tuna or something, you know.
Yeah.
But like when you're like, I think of like, it's like the middle of the, like when you go into like the day is like a friggin' war, bro. It's a battle. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's this, everything's happening every day, right? Like, so, cause you wake up and you better have a plan going into the day. Like, what am I going to get ready to do today? Because if you, and with the plan, you also have to have resources, right? It's like, cause you got to have ammunition for your soldiers to fight, right? Well, you better have ammunition to support yourself on what you're trying to do. Because let's say you wake up, oh man, all of a sudden, like, you know, I didn't get a good night's sleep. So I'm a little tired waking up. Oh, dang, man, my kid was being a real like crap head today. Well, you know, so then I got out of the house late. So then I got to the gym and I had to go squeeze my workout in a little bit shorter. And then, you know, this thing was happening and I got home and I didn't have food ready. Well, I just grabbed a snack, because then what are you going to start doing? You're going to start going for the easy stuff. You know, we'll talk more about this in a little bit when we talk about barriers, but you only get a certain amount of willpower every day, right? Like, I think like in the book, Deep Work by Cal Newport, he talked about this, right? Like you know, basically like, you know, you don't have an infinite amount of like willpower that you can just motivate yourself through. Like, you get a certain amount, and man, when you tax it out, like then you start going down the wrong path.
Right.
So like, you want to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly for you, so that like when the battle of the day starts, you know, I think this is why everybody who gets up early, why you like it when it's early, because it's quiet. Kids aren't up, wife's not up, husband's not up. The world's not really going yet. It's quiet, right? The battle hasn't started, because as soon as all of a sudden the cars start going, you know, the sun's up, the kids are up, everybody's up, and there's noise. There's an energy in the world going on. That's when the battle started, right? And the battle doesn't die down until the end of the night. So it's like, you got to, like, those are your windows, the morning and the evening. That's when you got to plan ahead and get everything together. In the middle of the day, you're fighting. You're fighting with all the stuff that's coming at you, because we all have like a million things tugging at us. And you're battling. And so you got to make sure that everything is in place to support you when that happens. Yep. At least that's the way that's my sort of thought of the way that I look at it.
Yeah. And you have to get comfortable with the planning. Like, I think that's not the most fun to meal prep your stuff ahead of time or the week, but it's important, because once you do it, it kind of lets everything, you can account for a lot of those things that come up.
Yeah.
Because you're already kind of planned it into it. It's almost like you expect things. You should start to expect things to go off the rails a little bit, and that way you'll know, all right, well, I've expected this. I'm going to have some stuff in place that is going to hopefully keep me on track.
Yeah. But, you know, going back to you with your experience, right? So yeah, meal prep was a pain in the butt for you at first, right? But like,
habit, baby.
Habit. But like, was the result at the end of it, when you got all leaned out, was it worth it?
It was awesome. Well, not just that. And like, also I did well in my competition.
Yeah.
I won. And I was like, all right, I felt good. I felt strong. I look better. So, you know, that's for me. I'm like, that the result is everything. I mean, that just speaks like, yeah, this was worth it. And then, okay, you want to do it again? You got to get get back. Sometimes you need a little time off, whatever that is, and then you get back to it if you need to. But
so here's an idea. We made an outline, but we're kind of going to jump around a little bit. But here's an idea about this. So you're talking like, we just touched on an idea that I think is interesting, right? Like, and this is more of a mindset. Like when you look at some of the data that's coming out, you see this in ancient wisdom and even modern psychology now, right? Where there's there's a path to happiness. That's pretty clear as far as laid out. But it's a lot of people move away from it. Right? Like people are moving in the exact opposite direction that they should be. So here's a quote from Aristotle. He says, "We have said that happiness is a certain sort of activity of the soul expressing virtue, and hence not a product of fortune." So he's saying that happiness is a activity of expressing virtue. By the way, when he says virtue, he doesn't necessarily just mean sort of a moral thing. The word virtue, arete, would be sort of saying that he's performing a function well. So as a grappler, you'd be being virtuous if you were learning if you were pursuing grappling excellently, right? But it's not fortune. It's not by chance that you're happy, right? It's like you're pursuing it. That's how they looked at it, right? Or that's how he looked at it. Now there's some data to back that up. There's different ideas, and there's anecdotal experiences that you can probably think about. But there was a good quote from the author of Flow. He was one of the guys a positive psychologist who sort of coined the term and helped name the term flow, wrote the books on it. I can't say his name. That's like, here, you're Russian.
Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, something like that.
Yeah.
Mikhaili. I have to look at it. It's from reading his book.
So there's a book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, right? So you can check out, he's got a few books on it, worth checking out. But again, that's, his name, and I can't say it for the life of me with my American tongue. I'll just butcher it. But there's a quote from that book where he says, quote, "The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile," end quote. So again, it's like, you think about like, okay, so happiness is an activity when you're trying to express excellence in something, is basically what he's saying, Aristotle. And then you listen to, this modern psychologist who's saying that like your best times, your most happy times, the times where you feel the most alive, and are not the times where you're just kicking back and doing nothing. And I think that most people would agree with that. You look at people like athletes, businessmen, all these different people, when they lose purpose, when they retire and they lose that drive to continue doing something, they go into depression, ego death. Some of them die, right? You look at people like when they retire from work and they don't know what to do with themselves, right? And they just, what else? Or when they lose a partner, and it's like you go to it's crazy if you go to like a grave area, I don't want to call it graveyard, but like a funeral area, whatever.
No, it's a graveyard.
Yeah, but you go there.
Cemetery.
There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Graveyard.
Graveyard.
It's technically right?
It's correct.
Go to a cemetery, and it's the craziest thing. I was pointing to Jess, and I've always noticed this since I was a little kid. If you go there and they'll have the tombs, they'll have like the couple.
Yeah.
Like probably a third of them, it's like one dies, the other one dies within a year. It's like they die so close together, because it's like your purpose is gone, right? So like we're not, everybody says this, but we're not meant to just be comfortable and cushy and just whatever. And so, but you think about most people, that's what they do, right? They try to make everything as easy as possible. It's like, so like meal prepping. It's not a hard activity. It's easy enough. It's difficult, and you got to plan ahead and you got to like earmark some time for it.
Yeah.
But man, like, so what? It's tough. That's anything that's worthwhile is tough, and you'll feel better for it at the end. You got to remember that. It's like, that's like, you will feel better about eating all the food that you are supposed to eat, and you'll feel a hell of a lot better, both like mentally and like your internal physiology, than if you were eating a bunch of junk food and fast food. So again, it's like the idea of happiness, right? It doesn't come from ease, right? It comes from the pursuit of going after something.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when you get into like the new year, right? Like this is what it's all about, right? Like we have this drive to pursue something, to be better than what we are now. That's not going to be easy. You're going to have to get uncomfortable in some manner, because you've got to stretch, to get, like when you think about when you first came into jiu-jitsu, it's really uncomfortable having some person squeeze on you, because you are having to stretch and deal with like this uncomfortable situation, and you eventually do, and it becomes normal and comfortable. when you're learning new positions, you fumble around, you get frustrated with it, you're stretching. When you're lifting weights, you literally feel your muscles get these micro tears, and they make you're so sore the next day, but you're getting stronger, you're getting more. These things, everything's like this. So again, it's like, I think it's worth to sort of the perspective wise is like when you're going through these difficult things, like this is happiness you're chasing. This is actually what's going to make you happy long run, long term.
Yeah.
Short term, sure, it might be a pain in the butt. But when you see your waistline improve, when you go to the doctor and he's like, oh, hey, your blood work's looking better, we can take you off these meds. You know, your kids look at you and they go, Daddy, you've lost some weight. Like you know, because they'll just say things. They don't even think about it, right?
Sure.
They'll be like, Daddy, you're looking fat. You know, like whatever. They'll just say whatever. That's worth it. You know, and so like when you go to the gym and you perform better when you're rolling, you're like, man, I feel great. I got more energy. It's worth it. But again, it just takes a little bit more time to get going. Whereas like you can go eat the fast food or you can go eat the easy junk food, and it's like quick. It's enjoyable mouth pleasure for a short bit, but then comes the after effects where you don't feel so good. Yep. Or you can just sort of endure the early portion where you're kind of getting the ball rolling with like say meal prepping as an example, but it's all kind of like this. And then once the ball's rolling, then the benefits, the enjoyment of it come afterwards, and they're more sustaining in their long term, right? So like it's more unenjoyable in the beginning, but more enjoyable long term. And then the other stuff is very short term, instant gratification, followed by, you know, I really wish I would have done this.
Yeah. The food piece we talk about, that's an interesting one, because at first, before I did anything with Eli, I didn't think I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never believed that I could even do it. I was like, I can't do this shit. I can't like stick to this diet. When you do, and then you have like your off-plan meal, that meal, you enjoy that so much because you've had such a, I want to say restrictive, because you still eat foods that you enjoy and you feel good after eating. You don't feel like that remorse from eating. And then,
but it's earned.
100%. It's earned, and it feels, and then like you earn that, like, I don't like saying cheat meal, just off meal, and like you don't go off the rails anyways, but like you don't need to enjoy it. You can just like have a little bit of a meal off plan, and it's just like so much more.
It's more enjoyable.
It's more enjoyable, and like it's such an experience. It's such a different experience. It's like you don't get it all the time.
Well, also too, you have contrast, right? Because imagine if you're always eating stuff like that, kind of just doesn't really have the same. But then if you if you're eating these foods, this really consistent diet, and then all of a sudden, boom. Yeah. Like you get the flavor is much more, you get to enjoy it. You know, it's like drinking. Like I drink pretty irregularly. Yeah. Maybe a drink a week, you know, it's usually at the end of the week on like a Friday or Saturday, and it's very enjoyable. If I was drinking every night, it's not going to be enjoyable, just going to be routine. But to have it be this like little reward at the end of the week. Hey, if you stick to your diet, if you do all these things and you get your stuff done, you get a little reward at the end of the week. It's nice.
It's funny how your body adjusts to things. Like I don't drink soft drinks. I don't drink and then my kid we'll go to Costco and my kid will get like a Sprite, and I'll take a sip of it, and I'm like, oh, it's so sweet. And like you don't realize how sweet it is if you have it all the time. But then you drink like sparkling water, for example, and then you drink something with a little bit of that flavoring in it, you're like, whoa. It's just intense. So it's your body adjusts to it. Sure. Like you adjust to eating clean and then your body runs on this fuel, and then you get used to feeling good and being efficient, your body running efficiently.
Yeah, and you can apply all the stuff that we're kind of talking about to jiu-jitsu, or you can apply it to training. I mean, because if your diet's better, you're going to, improve anyway. But like you can apply it to anything that you're trying to improve upon, right? Like whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. Like these same ideas apply. When I was talking to Eli, we were talking about the idea. He calls it his sort of idea, sort of as philosophically like living like a dog. So he doesn't mean like, in any negative way. He means like routine. Because you think about like a dog, if you have a dog or an animal, they typically have the routine is very set, right? Yeah. Like even with our horse, it's like he gets fed at a very specific time every day and every night. There's different patterns we have with them. With the cats, same thing. With the dog, same thing. Like they get fed at this time, they go out for this time, whatever. And so you want to kind of have that in some manner for your existence. Routines, patterns, habits, right? Because first off, 60% of your life, I guess, is what they say is that it's all just you're living off of like habits and routines, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're basically just going through the motions of all the stuff that you normally do just on routine and habit. So again, you want to be very like thoughtful with what habits you decide to implement, right? But again, if you just make it a habit that these are the foods you eat the same foods every day, and this is the food you eat because it makes you feel good. Okay, good. Just like your dog, he's eating the same kibble every single day. You go for your exercise, same time every day. Just like your dog goes outside and runs, same time every day. So his idea is like, you live like a dog. You basically just do this over and over again. And this is where, like, when you look at bodybuilders from a sport standpoint, it's like, it's not really all that interesting, from an actual sporting standpoint, like just watching a couple dudes get up and pose, like, kind of boring. But from the like preparation standpoint, it's intense because like athletes in other sports, they're training and doing things, but they can kind of take a step back. Bodybuilders have to be so dialed in 24/7, right? Your diet has to be just so. You might have to be cutting a certain amount of water for a competition, right? So that has to be just so, and again, you have to be sleeping the right amount of time. I mean, like it's so dialed in that you have to have so much discipline. And there's a lot of ideas to take from that, but there's a lot of discipline that goes into it that a lot of times you don't see in other sports, some athletic endeavors, where you'll have these amazing athletes who then go eat crap food and just get away with it, And again, some people will sort of make these complaints. Well, they did it, so and so won this and they were eating McDonald's. As me and Eli have talked about before, they did it in spite of it, not because of it.
Yeah.
You think there's something magical in McDonald's that made them better? No, it's not. It's not what made them better. They were just a freak athlete. How much better could they have been if they were dialed in with an amazing diet that supported them to the best of their abilities? I mean, maybe not, but I'm just like, what could they have done? Because it's not, we know that McDonald's is not great for you. Fast food's not great for you. So what could you have done if you'd have dialed in? It's even like Brandon Reed. I mean, Eli worked with him, and him and I talk, like, he's like, man, I feel so much better on this diet. Now, he'd never eaten like this before, still won 3 national championships in college, won plenty of jiu-jitsu stuff, but then all of a sudden he gets on a diet. He's like, he didn't know. Right. Talking about little food a little bit too much. Let's talk about the next thing.
All right.
Let's talk about Alibi-itis. So this is a sickness that
we talk about food a little too much.
Well, we're talking about food.
It's so like it. I think
food. It's like a proxy for all the other stuff we're talking about.
It's a segue into, like, you can use that as an example because everybody eats.
Everybody
eats,
and obviously we live in a country where food and eating habits is like one of our biggest problems.
Yeah.
Where like we're willing to inject whatever medicine they'll give us, whatever pills they'll give us, rather than simply get on a consistent diet.
It's crazy.
And by the way, I understand, like, some of you guys will be like, like genetics or something. I'm telling you right now, it's not your genetics. Like, I have a low thyroid function. So like you would say my metabolism is a little bit on the lower end, right? So again, like I'm with you. I got some of that stuff going on, right? But again, you just adjust your diet. It's like at some point you're going to lose weight. Now, you may not look shredded like some other person. Like, we were making a joke today at the gym. One of our guys named Marvin. Marvin's like, he's a pretty, he's got some solid genetics. I mean, he doesn't lift.
Yeah.
And he's jacked.
Yeah. Like, what's your problem, dude?
Oh, dude, what's
your problem?
I was telling him, I'm jealous. I'm like, bro, I'm fighting hard for this.
Yeah.
I'm fighting hard to like look like maybe slightly above average, or maybe a little jacked. And I mean, he's like jacked, and he just like, he doesn't lift weights or anything. I'm like, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
But again, so you're going to, it's like this success in progress. We'll say progress. We don't say success, progress. It's not mystical. But it's relative, right? Usually all like the people's like their habits, everything, they're all out there and put like in plain view. But a lot of times it's made to be like something, it's not mystical. It's not secret. It's dependable with attitudes, behaviors, right? I mean, progress and success is dependable on those things. Now, that's all going to be dependent on your starting line, what you got, and like what your genetics are, and even what your goals are, right? Because again, like, you may not want to be what this person is. You may have different goals for yourself, but you can still make progress towards that with attitudes and behaviors, right? I mean, this is why, like, you could have a guy who, let's talk about money, right? I have a mentor, who's wealthy, right? He has money, tons of real estate, other businesses, whatever else. Like, he's good. He's well taken care of monetarily, right? He could make more money, but that wasn't his goal. He's like, well, why do I want to? He's like, I make plenty for me. I get to hang out with my family whenever I want to. I live the life however I want. I do what I want to during my days. Like, why do I want to go chase more businesses and more problems, essentially, when it's really going to do is eat away the time for my family, the time that I want to spend doing the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, could he make more money, which would be more quote successful? Well, yeah, but his version of success for himself would be different. And so he would be moving away from that. And so again, you got to figure out what it is you want, right? But again, it's dependable if you do certain behaviors and have attitudes. But going back to Alibi-itis, let's talk about this. So in the there's a great passage from the book The True Believer by Eric Hoffer on a sickness that people suffer from. He writes, quote, there are many people who find a good alibi far more attractive than an achievement. For an achievement does not settle anything permanently. We still have to prove that we are as good as today as we were yesterday. But when we have a valid alibi for not achieving anything, we're fixed, so to speak, for life. Moreover, when we have an alibi for not writing a book and not painting a picture and so on, we have an alibi for not writing the greatest book and not writing the greatest picture or painting the greatest picture. Small wonder that the effort expended and the punishment endured in obtaining a good alibi often exceed the effort and grief requisite for the attainment of a most marked achievement, end quote. So there's lots of different ideas you can break from that. But again, you can talk about the first part. Having a good alibi is far more attractive than the achievement because the achievement doesn't settle anything permanently. So if I say I have an alibi, so going back to like the weight loss thing, man, I can't lose weight. It's genetics. I don't have to do anything anymore. It's done. I've already said I can't do it. It's not on me anymore. It's my genetics, not me. Third party, right? I can't be good at jiu-jitsu. I'm old. Okay, done. I'm off the hook. Right? Like everybody's got an excuse, it's an alibi, right? So like you got this alibi-itis where people just, and some of them are really good. Like some of the alibis are really good, right? You got kids. I can't do this guy, I got kids. But the problem is that for every alibi that someone like hangs on to, there's someone that basically had the same potential alibi and they chose not to accept it. Right. And again, that just, it is what it is. And this is not to be like, I don't know what the word is, to be an asshole to anybody. It's just coming to grips with your own bullshit. And we all got it. Like we all make excuses for stuff sometimes, right? Oh, yeah. We all do it, but you just got to like realize when you're full of shit. I mean, it is what it is, right? Because this dialogue's going in and you're making these excuses for yourself. You gotta understand it. Like I'm giving into something I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it. I think the only thing is like, I recognize it. So I'm good at like,
how do you recognize it? And how do you recommend somebody else recognize it? Now I can think of a few ways others can see it in you. And if they're good enough friends or good enough people in your life that are important, they're going to call you out on it. And that's one way. Because if they're people that you value, if you value their opinion, that's going to be something for sure. You value what they say, you're going to take it to heart. Like, Eugene, you're doing this, or you're being this way. Like if my wife tells me something, like I'm going to listen to her because she has I feel like she's got my best interest at heart. So what do you think? How somebody figure out that they're, feeding into their own shit?
I mean, for me, it's just like when I'm giving into something, right? Like, so like if I want to do something, but then I start doing this, but the buts, right? Like I give into these buts, but I can't because, and so for me, it's just like, that's unacceptable, right? Like I can't accept those, now again, that might mean that sometimes I'm naive or whatever, like maybe I should give into those sometimes, but it's like, no, I can't give into that. So like if something was to tell me like, oh, I can't do this because, then I have to eliminate that because that's just me giving into an excuse. Right. And I have some good ones, right? Like, I mean, there's like, I wrote about this in an email earlier this year, like around around Thanksgiving. I was like, things I'm grateful for. And one of those things was that I don't know, for whatever reason, like it's so crazy. You have people that'll have the same type of thing happen and they go completely different directions with how they respond. Right. Yeah. So for instance, like, and this is, I'm not looking for like, I'm not looking for any like, whatever. I'm just explaining this to you guys. So I had like, sexual abuse when I was a kid, young kid, probably around like, I guess I was like 5, 6, something like that, and then later on, when I was 12, I got jumped and got the crap beat out of me, had my nose broken, was hit with a bat 3 houses down from my street. And I look back at those experiences, and as rough as they were, for whatever reason, my sort of trajectory with them was like, I'm going to make sure that I become the person that these things never happen to again. And so instead of being like, I can't, like, for instance, I remember like how I used to be afraid of walking down the street because it was right out of my house. Yeah. And I was afraid to go outside the street, but I'm like, I have to go outside the street. I have to run. I can't let this thing like beat me. So let's go run. I'm going to learn how to, I started wrestling, started lifting weights, learned how to fight, like, okay, like I'm having I remember going to MMA fights, my first MMA fight, like, talking with a psychologist later on, it was like, oh man, like I was dealing with some, like, cause I would be like terrified from these fights sometimes. Cause you're going through this thing with like, you had this physical trauma and your body's like freaking out about this whole thing. But it's like, yeah, when you get on the mat, same thing, right? When I first started training, I was like super tense and tight and spazzy.
Everybody,
my body's going through some trauma stuff along with me being a spazzy wrestler.
Right.
There's a lot going on there, but it's like, so what? You conquer it. Like, so again, I'm not going to say, well, I can't do this because this happened to me. And I'm glad I never did that. I'm glad that was never on the table. Right. So like, that's something I'm grateful for, is like, I just basically was like, I'm going to go this direction. And so I don't know that there's like an easy way to it, but it's really just recognizing, like taking a step back and like, am I giving into excuses? Am I giving into, not doing something that I deeply want to do because of some excuse I've cooked up? Because I mean, that's really what it becomes to. It's like a lot of times it's like, if it's something you don't really want to do, then it's whatever. But like, let's say if you're trying to get better with the technique in jiu-jitsu, and that's something that's meaningful to you, or you're trying to win a competition, or like we were talking about losing weight or whatever, and you're wanting to do that thing, but then your body, your mind goes, but you have to not listen to that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because again, that's just, it's just an excuse popping up. It's, I guess, you in some ways trying to avoid the discomfort that's going to come from you having to push yourself. Right. Because I mean, if you decide to take on some new goal that's difficult, I mean, that's what's in store from you, is difficulty for a little while.
Yeah.
But it's rewarding, and you'll be happier for it if you accomplish those things. Or if even if you don't accomplish them, if you just work towards them, like if you get ready for a competition, you train your face off, even if you come up a little short, the whole pursuit of the thing, you'll be happy you did it, because you'll be like, man, like I got after it. Let's say you lost 20 pounds to get into a different weight class, and you trained your butt off and you got better in the gym, and you went into the competition and you like came up short. Maybe you won a couple matches, lost no whatever. You'll feel happy with that. You feel happy with those results because you actually put it all on the line and actually did it. And there's so much satisfaction that comes to, even if it's not completely 100% successful, just the fact you did what you set out to do.
And you're further towards your goal. Maybe you didn't achieve your goal, but you're not at the starting line. You're maybe halfway there. You want to achieve your goal, then if you want to win a tournament, then you're already in better shape. You already have better technique. You're already more dialed in. So, I mean, I think
no legit competition preparation is ever a loss. Like, even if you lose the match that you set out to win, if you put in, a real effort towards improving yourself along the way, you'll still walk away better off. Like you're saying, you're going to be in better shape. Your technique will be better. You'll have all these different things improve. Like even like mine, like I took third, but I didn't win first place like I'd set out to do. But over the course of those months, I gained some weight and some muscle, which I wanted to.
Yeah.
I, got better with a particular takedown. I got better with some of my guard passing, some things that I'd set out to do. So I'm better for it. I just, didn't get the result that I wanted, but that's okay.
Yeah. And you don't have control over the results. In those instances, you kind of have the control over your effort and what you do and how you prepare.
That's right. So again, success and everything looks a little different, but again, if you guys are getting into something in January, my encouragement to you is if you start, coming up with the alibis, then you gotta start checking yourself. And again, there's no way to do that easy. I don't know your situation. Maybe you have a reasonable one. I don't know. But again, my encouragement to you is if you notice those popping up, like you have to deal with those. Maybe you can write in a journal, however you deal with those things, however you deal with your inner dialogue, but you can't give in to the alibis.
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe some tactical stuff. So I'm talking about big, like abstract ideas. Let's talk about maybe some tactical stuff that you can do. When we ran the challenge last year, one of the biggest issues that everybody seemed to deal with, and maybe some of you guys maybe will be like this, is everybody was distracted. Everybody said they felt distracted. They felt distracted or they felt overwhelmed, right?
How do we deal,
Well, like,
how do you deal with overwhelm, right? You distract yourself. I think they're both
right,
one and the same, right?
I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. So then I'm going to distract myself.
Dude, 100%.
That's a good point. Well, so like when we were talking, so you know what everybody's like biggest distraction was?
Probably social media,
dude. Like, and like, I mean, for me, I deal with it too. And many of you guys who listen to the podcast, you guys know this. Because I talk about this all the time. Like, it's funny. Like one of my friends, kind of talks. He's like, you talk about this all the time on the podcast. I'm like, I know, I'm repeating it so that like maybe more people will do this and save themselves from it. The biggest issue was like a lot of people were getting distracted with social media. Now, me, it's like Instagram. Instagram's mine. I can blow some serious time on Instagram.
I'm saying,
I hate it, so I keep it deleted off my phone. And again, I use this for work. If you use this for work, like this goes to you too. But if you don't use this for work, like you shouldn't have any objections to this. So again, I delete it off my phone and it stays off. And then if I need to do something on it, I can just install it. And it takes a minute or two, right? Because it's like you go to the App Store, install it, boom. You're already logged in. I don't have to put in my password. It's already there. And then I can go do whatever I need to do. And I get back off and delete it. And that's simply, and one of my students actually did this because one of my students, he was telling me, he's like, man, I can't, I can't read books because I'll pick up the book and I'll start fiddling with my phone. And then at nighttime, I don't go to sleep early enough because I'm scrolling. I was like, delete it. He's like, what? I showed him. I was like, look, you can always add it back on if you really want it, but you're telling me right now that you don't like doing this, that you literally don't like what you get from the scrolling behavior, that it interrupts your sleep. It's not allowing you to engage in the activities that you would like to engage in, but yet you do it anyway. That's addiction. Literally addiction, right? And so like a lot of people, I don't think people are honest enough with themselves with these things, right? Because you're addicted to your phone. Like you're addicted. Like, again, it's not your fault in some ways because it was engineered to be that way. See, we many of us started playing with social media years ago before it was, but then like, for instance, years ago when the phones came out, when they started getting the data in, these companies, and they noticed how much longer people would stay on the mobile versus the web version. They were like, screw this. Because originally they were advertising, their advertising was more geared towards the web version, like on a computer. But once they figured out, man, people are on this phone one all the time, all the advertisement, and almost like the majority of their money comes from the mobile ads.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, you have to think about this addiction, and they made it addictive. Like you have some of the best and brightest minds in the world figuring out how to get you to stay on this phone longer. And it's not done in a way to support your life, your goals, your happiness. It's literally designed to steal your attention away. There is no money exchange, right? You're not paying money to be on these apps. The only exchange is your attention. The attention that you could give to your children, the attention that you could give to your wife, your husband, the attention that you could give to your goals, your training, more interesting, worthwhile things that maybe would make you a better person. I don't know, whatever else you want, but yet you get on this thing. And I don't know anybody that's like, you know what, man, I scroll and man, scrolling makes me feel great. You do it out of habit, and then you're pissed at yourself afterwards. Like, damn, I just wasted 40 minutes. Now, some of you guys, maybe you like scrolling, I guess. I don't know. But like for me, like I don't like doing it. So I delete it. And then that's it. It's off my phone. I don't have, and so like, go back to my student tangents. We're all over the place. I just drank coffee. So, my student, he deleted off his phone. He noticed that for the first couple of days, he would pick up his phone and go through the motions of like going to check Instagram, but Instagram was no longer there. And so that little dopamine reward for opening up Instagram was gone. So he stopped checking his phone. So the urge to pick up his phone started to go away, and he was able to go to sleep earlier and was able to read more books because his brain's not being scattered. Imagine that, right? And so like one of the biggest distractions that like we dealt with last year, that I didn't realize until after the challenge was over, was social media. Like people were just telling me, oh man, I'm so distracted. I'm like, what are you distracted with? I'm like, social media. Like, delete it. And then it was like, which is going to be a challenge this year, right? Like that's going to be one of our first challenges is like, if you don't work on this thing, if you're not, whatever, delete it just for a month. You can always add it back, right? After a month, you can always add it back in. What are you going to miss? And see, that's another thing. Like they program it to be FOMO, right? If you're missing out on something, oh, well, I'm going to miss out. What are you going to miss out on? What is so important on those apps that you're going to miss out on? There's almost, you get random information that tickles your brain that you probably won't remember in a couple of weeks. You get news that's a lot of times butchered or fabricated, and you get all kinds of stories that are complete lies. Like a lot of times if you go do like you'll see some crazy headline that pops up that's going viral, then you go do like 2 seconds of searching, you're like, oh, this is all bullshit. You're not missing anything, and again, when you get away from it, you're like, oh, okay, like I can just tell you this is my own experience. It's done wonders as far as my attention span, my overall sense of just calm clarity, where I'm not being like battered with information constantly, because there was a while when I first started, like when I was getting big on social media, initially like getting followers and stuff, right? I was in there playing around, and then just all of a sudden it started like hitting. I think it was probably around like maybe 2019 was maybe when this started, like where I started noticing I was just spending so much time on it. I was fiddling around with it a lot, and I started having this urge to check, and I was like, ugh. So I started like started doing things to try to pull that back. And then eventually it started to just delete it. Just delete it, and I can add it back on whenever I need to add something. And I use it for work. So I have like an assistant if needed, to where I'm like, here, will you post this for me? And I can always get on the web version on my computer and actually check the messages if I need to. And the thing is the internet version on your computer is not nearly as addictive. And this is what they found, is not nearly as addictive as the phone version.
Yeah.
So you probably, even if you just checked it on your computer, you probably spend less time on it. But again, you may have different distractions than me. Instagram and social media is one that a lot of people have. I think it's more common than not, TikTok, if you want to include that one in there. But you have to eliminate distractions, because everybody says this, but it's so true. What you say no to is just as important as what you say yes to, because like what you say no to basically clears up space for what you want to say yes to. Because if you're going to take on some goal, if you're going to deal with the stress of like taking on something and stretching yourself and making yourself better at something, to improve yourself, to give it 100% effort and focus, you can't be scattered everywhere. You just can't be. You can't be everywhere. And again, things like social media, like, YouTube's a little different for me, because I can get on there and listen to lectures and things like that. But with like Instagram and things like that, it's just coming at you. It's just fast-paced content that leaves you scattered. It's shown to, hurt your attention span.
Yeah.
All these things. So it's like, what is it doing for you? And I guess to me, that's even just a general idea, right? Like we have always this modern sort of conception that new is always better. Like new information, new technology is always better. But as I'm getting older, I'm like, I don't know. For instance, like with the communication, right? We exchange high quality face-to-face communication for cheap, low quality communication with people on the internet. So you'll give someone a text message and like, oh, I communicated with them, right? Opposed to like going and seeing them, or even talking to them on the phone or something, right? And having a conversation. But you go, when you see someone in person, like that if you like the person and you see them in person, that's generally a good time. Like when we came to your house and saw you and Mish and the kids. Like that was good. Like I left that exchange, like that was a good exchange. I enjoyed that, like that, like as a human, seeing other humans that I like, getting to talk and hang out, have a meal together. That was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Can't replicate that with a text message. Can't replicate that with FaceTime. They're nice. They have their place. But again, I think that sometimes you have to say no to certain things. And text messages, we were talking about that before the show. Text messages are a problem for a lot of people too, right? Like, you're getting like dings constantly. And how are you going to be focused on what you're trying to do if you're constantly being distracted?
Yeah, we talked about, so it's interesting how we talk about barriers, because we talked about removing barriers in certain things and then adding barriers in, right? So we're adding barriers into Instagram, to social media, to other things. And for me, this is a problem that I have. Like I'll text you and sometimes I won't hear from you for like a day or like hours or whatever. I know you'll get back to me because you've got stuff going on and you have a certain way that you like to control or kind of manage that stuff. For me, if I get a text message, I'm like, I got to get back to this person, or I'll forget, or then it's going to linger in my head, or they'll think I'm an asshole if I don't get back to them in time, or this or that. And so that's my own internal dialogue that I'm struggling with. So like, I feel like I have to like respond pretty quickly to somebody, and that's like a pull for me. So that's something I struggle with.
Right. And see, that's one of the reasons why like I'm careful to text people. Because if I send you a message, I'm now asking for your attention on something. I'm asking for a response. So I'm taking time from you. So like if you get a text message from me, if you do get, there will be a reason for it. I'm not going to be like, hey man, what's going on? If I want to do that, I'll come see you, or I'll call you. We'll talk. Yep. But we see each other regularly, right? Yeah. But like if I want to just chat with someone, I'll call them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to text you, right? Like we'll talk. But but you're asking for someone's attention. And so again, it's one of those things where think about like maybe 30 years ago, before like text messages were a thing, you might have an answering machine. You check it once or twice a day, maybe 3 times a day if you're like in business. If you were like in a business situation, you might have a secretary that hands you, here's a list of people. You're like, it was very contained. Now it's all over the place. You got messages, Facebook, Instagram, text message. and this is coming at you. And again, this seems like what does this have to do with jiu-jitsu? It's like, again, let's say that you're focused on a technique, right? Well, you could be spending that time like watching an instructional, studying a technique, being focused on like, how do I plan to roll tomorrow or tonight, or even simply saving up your mental energy for the rolling session and really giving it more focus. Because again, you only got so much like mental energy in your day, right? You can't just like refill it constantly. That's what sleep's for, right? So that you got this little pack of energy that you have. Let's say you got 100% in the start of the day. Well, if you're giving percent here throughout the day, by the time the end of the day comes, right, you don't have a lot after your day of work and kids and everything else. Then you try to go focus on training. But if you start to put barriers on the things that take away from that, right? So you like you were saying, you remove barriers to do the things you want to do, and you put up barriers from the things that take you away from doing the things you want to do. Then you're a lot more clear-headed for those things. Yeah. You got more energy. And again, people will, with the text message thing, people will start to understand and they will understand eventually what the way that you wish to be communicated with. Yeah. It bothers them at first sometimes. Like when I started doing this, people thought I was mad at them. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm not mad at you. I just don't have the bandwidth. I just didn't. I felt like I was just like all over the place. It was bothering me. Yeah. So I was like, I can't do this. Even at the gym. Like if I go to the gym, I can't do work there. Like I can rarely work there, because most of the time I'm at the gym, people want to go, hey, what's up, man? And they want to talk because this is their fun place. But for me, I'm trying to work, but I can't work at the gym. And even I remember I used to go in the back room, that little door, I'd close the door, whatever. People just knock on, hey, Chewy, what's up? I'm like, what's up? Hey, man, just want to see how you're doing. I'm like, so I take no ill will towards it. I'm just like, okay, sure. I have to stay secluded. So when I go to the gym, I'm ready to be 100% in the gym. Yeah. And again, some of these things like seem so silly, but again, it's just, if you get away from some of these constant, like just bombardment of information and distractions constantly, it just frees you up mentally to do whatever it is that you want to do. And you have more willpower to like do what you want to do. Yeah. Even like with your the environment, it's like, for instance, when in the house, me and my wife don't carry we don't have certain foods in the house because I'm going to eat them. That's right. Like, I mean, I know me. I'll eat it.
Barrier. You're not going to go out. You're not going to head to the store in the middle of the night or whatever and pick up ice cream.
That's it.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. It's like deleting Instagram off the phone. It's not there. I don't really want to play with Instagram anyway, so I'm not going to go through the 1 minute of time that it's going to take to install it. I'm just having a sweet craving. There's no ice cream. Well, I'm not going to go up the street and, take 10 minutes out of my day to drive up and get ice cream and then 10 minutes back. I'm just going to go, well, let me just eat another meal, or I'll have a protein shake or something. Yeah. I'll do that instead. And so, you got to put up those barriers. But for a lot of you guys listening to this, you got to be honest with yourself. Like, one of the easiest things that you could do to like maximize your ability to do the things that you want to do is to eliminate whatever it is that's distracting you or taking you away from, the stuff that's holding you back from being the person you want to be. So as an example, removing social media off your phone. If you get distracted from social media, if you're sitting there scrolling for hours and it's taking away your mental energy, then why do you need it? Be honest with yourself. And if you can't have a good reason, which really nobody has a good reason, because even like I know people who like are really into social media and they have assistants doing stuff for them. Right? Like, they're not doing it themselves. They're not sitting around all day long. They have assistants help them out. The people that are using social media typically are the ones that are just addicted to it, and they're just hooked, and they're just scrolling all day. Like, so again, don't do that to yourself. Steal your time back, steal your attention back, because they're stealing it from you. It's literally, that's the currency that's being exchanged, is your attention. Put that towards something more important. And again, if you can't do that for even to say a week, you can always say to yourself, I'll delete it for a day or a week. And if you can't do that, realize you're addicted. It's like an alcoholic saying, I like having a drink. I can stop whenever I want to. Okay, right. Sure you can. But delete it, right? And then just understand that that's like something, it could be drinking. I had one guy that like last year, he was just like, he wasn't a true alcoholic. Like, he could stop, but he just had gotten into the habit of drinking every night. Yeah. I was like, and then he was like, his other issues were sleeping, wasn't getting the best sleep. And so he was tired, and so he's over consuming caffeine. So we're like, why don't we just stop drinking, dude? Why don't we let's keep drinking like one time a week? We'll drink on a Friday night or whatever, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Starts doing that. His sleep quality goes up. He uses less caffeine. He feels better. Like, you know, it's like, so you gotta be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, you don't have to overcomplicate this stuff. Like, you know, again, we talk about making things simple. It's just about picking out like little simple things. Like, let's remove this distraction. Let's put up a barrier to do this thing that's taking me away. And like, what's one thing that I actually want to do? And that's what you that's the way I always think about these things. It's like, what's one action you could do every day that would bring you a little bit closer, and let's get that online.
Yep.
And then once that like is so habitual, like for instance, like because we both done this with meal prepping, after a while, you don't even realize it. Like weighing out my food is so natural. Meal prepping, so natural. It doesn't take any like mental energy. It's autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I cook breakfast in the morning for me and the family, it's like, it's literally like, it's autopilot. I've done it so many times. It takes no mental energy. That plate is spinning. Now I can put that towards something else.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, that makes sense. Actually, it doesn't take as much effort.
Yeah.
And really mental energy, physical energy, because it's kind of automatic.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so like when I'm doing this challenge with people, it's like, I'm not asking people to do a lot. We're really just basically over the course of the month, we're getting rid of a couple distractions, and we're just identifying a couple of things that you want to change in your game direction wise. And then we're just being like, what are like 3 different things that we can do, at least like one of them each day.
Mm.
That's it. It's super simple. Like, it's super simple to make progress in jiu-jitsu. And to me, it's super simple to make progress in anything, because it's not that complicated. The issue is that like, you can't make progress when you're being torn away from it, from everything else, and you're being distracted, and you're being your attention is being just consumed.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think that I don't think they're as thoughtful about it as they should be, because I think we've talked to a couple guests who've shared this idea. I think that in years to come, we will look at the social media companies as we do with tobacco companies from the old days, where you guys knew what you were doing to us, and you just kept selling it because, hey, we got to make money, right? Where we got shareholders. We don't care what we do to children. We don't care what we do to our country's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give a damn. All we're doing is making money, and making money for shareholders. And if you look at what social media does, I'm not saying there can't be a positive purpose to it, because there's lots of cool stuff from social media. I benefit from it. Like, I like using YouTube. YouTube's my favorite, right? But I think YouTube's a little different, because it doesn't.
Would you call YouTube social media? I don't know if it really is.
It is social media, but it doesn't have that same. To me, like, I don't spend the same amount of time on YouTube that I see people. Like, I don't see anybody just like getting like, I go to airports and I'll watch young people's behavior. Like, it's weird. People watch like, and I've watched like young kids where you're on their phones and you watch their feet. There's one girl I remember watching this. I was like, oh my God. She would pick her phone up, she'd pick it up, and then she would scroll. Her little hand, man, was just moving. She would open up Instagram, scroll, close, open up TikTok, scroll, close phone, pick up her phone, open the phone. I mean, it was like a twitch. She just kept, within just like, we were sitting there waiting for this plane to take off, and maybe 10 minutes. I mean, it was like, she probably checked it twice every minute. She just back down, back down. You're thinking, okay, like maybe that's an extreme case, but like, what is that doing to our kids? What is that doing to us as adults? And so I don't think that people are really, they act like this thing is benign. And it's like, I wish it was, but I don't think it is. And maybe that makes me sound like I'm like over whatever, like I'm being so dramatic about it. But your attention, right? It's like so important, because that's what you use to make stuff happen, is your attention, right? Like, that's everything. So like, you know, like you listen to people, you know, remember the like, you hear like the woo-woo people talk about manifesting, or you'll hear about the secret, right? Like, we're gonna think about it, and it's gonna become a thing. It's your attention. You gave it your attention, right? And like, whatever you give your attention is what's going to grow, right? It's like a plant. Like, you know, you like, if you give it the sunlight, and you give it water, and you give it care, and you give it attention, the plant's going to grow.
Yeah.
If you just like plant the seed and then you walk off and don't do anything with it, it's probably not likely, you know? And so that's an important thing. Like, what kind of ideas do you want to take root in your brain, and what do you want to like give them towards? What kind of relationships do you want to foster with people? And I think that's when you look at like what technology's done. Like, tell me that our society is better off for all those things. In some ways, maybe, but like, I mean, as a whole, like cohesiveness,
yeah,
mental health for our children and our adults, Tell me how those things have improved by those devices.
Well, also divisiveness that you get. Like you're going to start, there's, not just social media, but you start looking at algorithms and how those are created. And so now you start feeding into like, oh, well, this is all going to reinforce my line of thinking, or I like cat videos. So all of a sudden I'm going to get a lot of cat videos. All of a sudden, I'm just going to get more and more of that. And it's going to keep me on this thing longer. So
it's like outrage of the day. Outrage of the day. I mean, you get those funny videos and stuff, but like you look at a lot of like internet content now, it becomes just like outrage, right? Because it's like whatever we can do, it's like to stir the pot.
It has to be, because conflict sells. Conflict
sells.
It's important. It's important. It's like you're watching,
a fight,
a UFC fight, and you got Conor McGregor or Chael Sonnen, who are like the two of the best.
They're trash talkers.
They're incredible. I want to watch him fight. Yeah, I want to see if he's gonna. And afterwards, what happens? Afterwards, they shake hands and they're like very gracious in defeat or victory or whatever. Like, great job. But before that, the hype, the buildup. You got two guys that are really solid, really good fighters. They don't really talk much. Go out there, just do their thing, win, and everyone's like, okay, so what?
Yep.
You want the drama.
By the way, guys, if any of you guys are one of the people who registered for the Executors Challenge, trust me, there's going to be a lot more than just deleting social media. We're kind of picking on that one thing, I think and teasing it out, because last year it was one of the things that a lot of people had trouble with.
Yeah.
And like really like I had one guy, I was like literally coming to grips with him. I was like, bro, you're addicted to your phone. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, bro, you literally won't delete the app.
Yes.
I'm like, you won't delete the app, and come on, man.
I might be that bro.
Delete it. Just delete it. So again, we're just teasing, because again, there's like 31 days of this stuff going on. So like, we're not going to do that over one episode, but that was one of the things that we dealt with. And I think it's just one of the simplest things to do if you want to like clear up your if you feel overwhelmed by information, if you feel like you can't read books, study instructionals, and do all these different things that you'd like to do, maybe journal a little bit, meditate, whatever it is, right? Sit down and just relax for a little bit. Or if you find yourself diddling with your phone when you're hanging out with your kids, or your wife, your husband, your family, I'm telling you right now, just do it. Do it for a month. Just try it and see how you feel at the end of the month. And tell me you don't feel better, right? Like, don't tell me you don't feel like it was a better experience, because that's what you're doing, So again, that's why I brought it up there for the episode, because I figured there would be like one thing to talk about specifically, was that, right? Like that idea. And then we briefly touched on removing and adding barriers, because those are really important, because you have to have if you're going to like make progress, you have to have an environment to support it.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
Environments,
huge,
incredibly important. Yeah.
Incredibly. You're not going to be able to, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the episode. You're not going to go into the middle of the holiday season ready to cut weight and have a high chance of success, unless you got a really like one good of a goal, like really good goal. Like maybe you got a big competition coming up or something like that. I've had that before. But for most of us, it's not going to happen, right? So you got to be thoughtful about that, right? Because you're putting yourself in an environment that's not going to be conducive to success with that particular goal. And if you're, trying to, let's say maybe you do some work on your computer or something, and then like you don't have some way to limit what you're doing on that computer at any time, that's tough. Especially like if you're trying to do some stuff with your phone or whatever, like, oh, good Lord, man. Like this thing's like, it's like Las Vegas. It's right? Like, it's just like right there. It's like, you got all kinds of crazy stuff going on in there, right? Like, good luck trying to focus with that thing around.
Yep. No, I agree. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for most. That's why I think it comes up, because it's really,
and that's why
everybody has a phone, and most everybody, I think they like would preload Facebook on like phones, like in some of these whatever countries that they were getting, they would have Facebook preloaded as an app.
So I didn't know this, but Facebook, like for instance, I was listening to one of Andy Stump's podcasts, and he was talking about when he went over to some of these third world countries, they don't see the internet as we do. Like for them, Facebook is like the internet. Like,
oh wow,
like you remember. So here's an idea. Remember when you would log on to AOL back in the day, and when you would get to AOL, it would just be like there was like a whole like suite of stuff that AOL had specifically curated. Now that would be the internet for you. Now you could go download like Netscape or Internet Explorer, whatever, and you could use those to surf the web. But otherwise, there was chat rooms, there was news.
Sure,
it was all there from AOL. So he was saying that basically in a lot of places, like Facebook, like they get
That's
Facebook.
what they think
That's
it
the
is.
internet, right? And you're on the internet with Facebook.
And just so AOL is America Online. If you guys didn't know, you would get
Our audience is
there
might be a few youngins, but most of our
on,
audience was,
hold on. You'd get it. Just I want to break this down. You get a disc in the mail, and you would insert it into your computer, and then was it a floppy or was it just a CD?
They started off with floppies, but then they obviously
floppy disk. So CD, you put it in there,
you get like 200 hours.
Yes, hours, and then you have to, the dial-up. Remember the dial-up?
Oh,
You
yeah,
couldn't get phone calls, and you have to go and have to connect. Oh, it was just crazy. But yeah, I remember being on talking to people. It's like, this is so cool. Just chatting with people, like friends from school that I would see that I could call, but talking to them on the computer was so interesting.
Oh, it was so neat, right? So
like, this is crazy.
What's your ASL?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? ASL? Age, sex, location.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm this old, I live here.
I didn't talk to people that I didn't know. I don't think.
You used to get into chat rooms all the time and just talk to people.
I didn't. Dude, that's crazy. I don't think I ever did that.
Just get in chat rooms. We just talk to random people.
Wow.
Probably talk a bunch of creepos.
They have that now. Like they have these like, is it chat roulette or something? Like, is that even a thing? Is that what it is?
I'd be careful with that one.
Is that a bad one?
Well, no, it's just, I remember,
they have some that are like, what are they called?
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. So chat roulette, for anybody.
Was chat roulette a bad one?
What was it? I used it a long time ago. And bro, it was
like switch on and then go to somebody else, right?
Right. But like you might have normal people on it, but bro, you might switch on and there might be might have some naked dude like sitting there in like a monkey costume or something. You never know. You never know.
What do they have now? They have like different. They have stuff like that.
I'm sure they do.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my god, dude, that's so crazy.
Yeah. So
that's the first thing I thought of. But it's just random.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then one last thing to leave with you guys with, right? Is whatever thing that you decide to take on in January, right? One of my big encouragements is to figure out what you can do for that particular thing daily.
Okay.
So for instance, like as an example, maybe you could sort of think of this. Let's say that you want to work on a particular technique or position in jiu-jitsu, right? Well, what are things you can do for it daily, right? Well, you could roll, and specifically roll with that in mind when you're training. You could go into the session maybe a little bit earlier, stay a little bit late or whatever, and try to drill it. Grab one of your battle buddies, one of your battle bros on the mat, and then just drill. Get like reps of it. Reps help. I know there are people who poo-poo on reps, but trust me, like if you're trying to get the feel for it, it's a new technique. It's a good idea to get some reps in it in the beginning when you're trying to get your sort of your understanding of that technique. And then once you do, then you can go more into the live practice mode and situational training. And then maybe you can't roll that day because you either can't get to the gym or you're sore, whatever. Study the instructional or study the video, study something, right? Like find a video of it, find your coach showing it, find if you bought an instructional, whatever it is, and then watch it and study it. You don't have to do it for long, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. Like study it again, because what will happen is as you use the technique and drill it, and then you come back and study it, you'll see new things. And it's simply the act of doing something daily to make that particular thing happen. It's really important. Like whatever I try to get into, I try to do daily on some level.
Okay.
Because for me, daily means that like I'm constantly touching it every single day. It never gets away from me. And my goal is to just stick with it daily. And so whenever I come up with a new goal, my idea is like, let's come up with the things that I need to do to make that happen, little processes, little things I need to do. And then I simply do those things. Usually I give myself like a minimum amount of time. The idea, I call it short starts. I think like James Clear, he calls it something else, but the idea basically
habit stacking.
He calls it like a 2-minute start, I think.
Okay.
But basically it's like just whatever the idea is, just do it for 2 minutes.
Okay.
And then if you've done it for 2 minutes, it's a success. But what happens is if you do it for 2 minutes, you'll probably do it for a little bit longer.
Sure.
Right. But you make, again, going back to removing the barrier, make the barrier of entry easier. So if you said, man, I got to study this instructional for an hour. Oh, God, I don't have an hour. But if you said, man, you just go study this for like 5 minutes. Everybody's got 5 minutes they can find in their day. Right. I mean, everybody's finding 5 minutes to scroll while they're taking a poop. Right. So like open up your phone and like watch the instructional instead, right? Like you can find this time there. And if you make the barrier really small, where you say, oh, just like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, then all of a sudden you're into it. You're like, well, I'm just gonna watch a little bit longer, or you say like drilling wise, a lot of people don't like to drill. Okay, well, just go drill it 10, 15 times, 20 times, whatever. Okay, cool. You do 20 times. Man, I'm feeling a little bit better with the technique. Let's just do a few more reps.
Mhm.
Because that's what happens when you start drilling and you drill it for a little bit. You start to feel a little bit more smooth with the
Yeah.
technique, or you feel more connected to the movements. It feels like good. It feels empowering. Oh, I mean, this feels better. So then you want to do it a little bit longer, right? Same thing with rolling. Like, okay, like, yeah, it's frustrating, but maybe by the end of the session, you feel like you got a little bit better with the technique. It's like, oh, I'll do this again tomorrow. So, doing something daily and making sure that you make the barrier of entry really small to do it, right? Don't try to make it this huge big grand thing, because the big grand things that you're wanting to accomplish are built up by all these little small things.
Yeah.
If you want to look like, if you want to have like a friggin' like rip six pack, it's compiled about you just eating the same or similar foods under this caloric deficit consistently every day for a period of time. That's all it is, right? If you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, it's those three things that I just gave you. There's more, but those three things just right there are really simple. You do those for a solid month on one particular technique or position, you're gonna experience some success with it. Do it for a year. Like, how good are you gonna get with this stuff? I mean, it gets up to you. But do something daily, right? Don't, not here and there, just daily. Just make it something daily. Make it a part of your routine, make it a part of your ritual. Because if we do something daily, then the plate's spinning.
Yep.
Right. Then the plate's spinning, and then we can go to get the next plate online and get it spinning. And so I like doing things daily. And usually when you get something, I think it's like, what is the data show that I read? It was like 66 days. Like, if you get to 66 days of doing something, it is basically wired into you at that point where it's autopilot.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to think about it anymore. You've now got a new habit online. You can move. So it's like 2 months. So imagine, like, you have like 6 potential new habits that you could implement over the course of a year. Now, again, we're not talking about changing everything. We're saying, like, just 6 times over the course of the year, you focus on one thing every 2 months. That's a whole new game of jiu-jitsu. That's a whole new lifestyle if you want it. I mean, it's whatever you want, and it's all built on just like little bitty tasks that you can do every day. And that's that. And I think that's the simplest part to do it, right? Instead of trying to make it into this big thing that you have to, grapple with and fight with, pun intended, it's little small things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's been the most helpful to me. Like, when I look at like my ability to be good at jiu-jitsu, the things that I've done a few things in my life that I'm pretty darn proud of. And I think that are exceptional in the space that I'm in. Again, you can always find someone comparative to, well, this person's better than me or whatever. You can always do that. But for the hand that I was dealt in life, for the genetic hand that I was given, for the life that I was given as a young man, I've done all right by myself. And when I look at it, it's because of those small little things. It's like finding one little thing to do and just doing it constantly, and then moving over to the next thing, building that up, and so forth. So those are some ideas to chew on, guys. Again, these are ideas that have been useful to me, and hopefully they can be useful to you. If any of you guys are joining me in the Executors Challenge, I'm looking forward to working with you. I believe, let's see here, this will be out on this January the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will probably be the last day of the actual sale. So I was going to shut it down on December 31st, because we're going to start on the 1st. But since that's going to be a half week, we're going to like really kick things off today, January the 6th. And so if you guys want to join, you can go to my website. If you want to find it, you can like find it on my website somewhere. It's chewjitsu.io/execute. EXECUT.
Chewy, I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Put it in the show notes. If you want to join. If you don't, no worries. Like the stuff that, like, I just told you, some ideas from this today. If you put any of this little stuff into action, I mean, you'd be better off for it. So just some ideas to chew on, but hopefully it helps you guys. But if you guys are with me in the Executors Challenge, I'm excited to work with you guys as your coach for the next month. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. All right, guys. So that was the podcast. Hopefully you got something from it. Again, I hope that I didn't seem like I was just hampering and demonizing social media too much. I mean, again, there's positive parts to it and whatnot, but it gets just in its current iteration where it's just like there's no containment of it, I think, is the issue when it's connected to your phone, right? So I use it, but again, I have my containment mechanism by deleting it, and so it helps me out to where it doesn't consume too much of my time. And if you find yourself doing it, then check it out. But anyways, hopefully you got something from the podcast. If you're joining me for the Executors Challenge, I look forward to working with you. Big thanks to our sponsors, Grapple Science. If you guys have not checked them out yet, check out their supplement Cognition. It's right here. They just came out with it recently in the last number of months. Again, their jiu-jitsu black belts who were involved with a company called Killcliff years ago, and they got in, they wanted to create a supplement for grapplers, right? And they were like looking at it because that's what they did. They created a supplement. A lot of times it was back in the day, it was for like CrossFitters. Actually, like the Killcliff supplement that they had, it was very low on the caffeine, right? But then they got into the jiu-jitsu market. They're like, we want to create something for grapplers. And so again, dumping huge amounts of stimulants and caffeine into your body is not the ideal way to get a boost for grappling. Some of you guys might get away with it, but I've had this happen with numerous times where I've gotten a student who was using like a pre-workout supplement that was full of caffeine and stimulants. Like, hey, try taking in less, drink something less, or maybe do something without the caffeine and stimulants. And it does take away maybe that burst of energy, but they find that they could roll longer, because if you think about what stimulants and caffeine do, they sort of raise your red line. So raise your idle. So if you're just like sitting there, all the physiological responses, like your heart rate, your blood pressure, all these things that move up as you get closer and closer to that red line when you're training, well, you're just going higher and higher and closer to that. So you have less room to work with. And so what the supplement they have, Cognition, is designed for people in grappling who are busy as hell, just like all of us are, right? Working and everything else. And it's designed to help you get a boost of cognitive function when you're training. So be a little sharper, a little bit more focused, have a little bit more energy so that you can train, you can get the most from your training. Again, we've had numerous guests on the podcast who've used it, like Ryan Akins, who the PGF champ, who was using it during the grueling gauntlet that Brandon McGaffron puts those guys through.
That was gnarly. I mean, so crazy.
Rough matches for like a whole week. He used it. I like using it. My wife likes using it. So check it out. Again, it's worth trying. Again, with all supplements, I always put this disclaimer: things affect people differently. But I like the supplement. I think it's worth trying. So if you guys want to try it out for a month, see what kind of effects you get from it. And again, if you get something from it or you enjoy it, let me know. The promo code for it is at grapplescience.com. That's the website. Promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, thanks to Charlotte's Web CBD, and they also make some other supplements like their CBN supplement, which is to help people stay asleep. Again, I'm a fan of their supplement because, as I've said before, right, when it comes to like when we're talking on this podcast, the big things you should be really emphasizing on is your diet, your sleep, management of stress and inputs, right? Those are big ones. And then you start to get into things like supplements once those things are in, and supplements can be useful. And I really like Charlotte's Web supplements. They make a really good line of products. They're all third-party tested to ensure the purity and the quality of those products. And again, for me, I use their supplements primarily for the stress management portion and to help me with sleep, because, for me, I'm getting older, almost 40. And so anything I can do to aid my recovery is, going to be, in the right direction. Like right now, I just finished up some peptides, like BPC 157, for a pulled muscle I got from the competition, right? So like, got to use it sometimes, right? Like when it's there. So one of the supplements I like using is their CBN's Stay Asleep Gummy, which is a CBN product, which is supposed to be more beneficial for sleep. If you guys want to check it out or get information on it, you can go to their website at charlottesweb.com. If you order anything on their website, just use the promo code Chewjitsu30. Doesn't cost you anything extra. But again, we get a kickback because it is our affiliate code, which helps support the podcast, and you get a good discount on their products. If you want to get some new jiu-jitsu gear or apparel or anything jiu-jitsu related, check out epicrollbjj.com. When you go to their website, they've got gis, rash guards, shorts, anything and everything jiu-jitsu related. I'll also be making releasing my new jiu-jitsu rash guards and shorts. I'm having to make a couple of modifications on them to make them IBJJF legal. Long story. I'll share that with you guys later on. The blue, purple, brown ones are. The black and white ones were not, because they have gray in them. So anyway, going to make some adjustments to it, make sure they're IBJJF legal for you guys if you want to wear them in an IBJJF competition. But I'm really excited about them. And again, I get them made through Epic Roll because like that's all I wear. It's like for all my Nogi stuff, it's all my jiu-jitsu stuff that he made. And I like this stuff. And so if you guys want to check out their website, epicrollbjj.com is the website. Promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you get there, you can look on the website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. It'll tell you about the different perks and different tiers that we have. You can choose if you'd like to join for a very inexpensive price. And again, it helps support the podcast so we can keep coming to you week after week. And we try to give you some extras in there. There is an additional part of this podcast that was not released, talking about some more ideas, some things that you can implement to possibly get more from yourself coming up in 2025 and, working towards your goals. But again, there's a whole library of content, some other perks. If you want to check it out, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And guys, last but not least, if you would like to get my daily email where I send out anything and everything rather, that I think could be useful to you with your training or your lifestyle off the mat, anything, it's jiu-jitsu related / like, as you guys probably get, there's like sort of the philosophical element. Like I was doing I do an email. Like I like seeing what I can string together in there.
I can weave like certain things together.
Yeah, like how can I weave like the email I sent out the other day with Aristotle and then the psychologist. Like how can I weave them together? Or I did one where I had like Soren Kierkegaard, and I was like weaved him into one of the emails, right? So there's a lot of that stuff in there. But then there's books and things that I like to read, and just the general ideas that I find interesting that I like sharing. I also make offers for different products and things like that I give exclusive discounts to in the Chew Crew email list that I do not release anywhere else. If you want to get details on it, you can go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. And then when you join up, you'll get some free resources, an ebook and a video going into how to add more focus to your jiu-jitsu, more focus to your rolling to get more from your training. This would be really important if you are someone who can't simply train all day long and 7 days a week or whatever. You need to add more focus to your training to get more progress from yourself. So if you're one of those people who's like, man, I really want to get better, but I keep getting sort of stagnant, or I don't feel like I'm progressing, go read the book. If you decide you like the book, but you don't like the emails, you can always unsubscribe at any time you want to. But guys, that said, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to 2025. I'm glad you guys hope you guys are doing all right. You're probably doing all right if you listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
It was fun meeting some of you guys out in Nogi Worlds. Met some of you guys traveling through Louisville during the holidays. Coming through, it was fun meeting you guys. Met a guy today who came in with his wife.
Nice.
He listens to the podcast.
Hey,
his wife is like his wife trains, but she's not like a Chewjitsu like acolyte or whatever. But she was like, oh, you're Chew. Yeah. My husband listens to your podcast all the time.
Nice.
Oh, great.
That's awesome.
But again, appreciate you guys. And again, looking forward to seeing what happens in 2025 with you guys. And we'll talk to you next week.